Hello and welcome to Gender Forking, a Twilight Saga podcast. It is a podcast about the Twilight Saga. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lori.
Today we're discussing Chapter 8 of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, which is Port Angeles.
That's not our music, but it is music.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that our theme
No.
song? Today is the first day of 2020.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year.
Do you have any general Twilight New Year's resolutions? Like for the podcast? Or for your own personal Twilight journey? TM?
I really want to go to the Pacific Northwest
Yes.
and see the filming locations, especially after reading this Port Angeles chapter. I really want to go to Bella Italia and eat some mushroom ravioli.
What I was thinking was...
Did I completely miss the mark on resolutions?
No. Like, I was thinking about going to Port Angeles and, like, seeing all the sites, but, like, all the sites are just, like, the alley where Bella almost gets raped.
The department store.
You can, like, go on, like walk Bella's path of, like,
my god.
almost being gang raped.
We should do it.
Oh my god.
Oh boy, what a chapter.
Oh boy.
It's like, I hate this chapter, but then I love this chapter.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I agree with, like, anything that happens.
No.
But it's very entertaining.
It's like...
Page
dive in.
152.
Starting on page 152 for those reading along at home. The girls
TM
are driving.
They're going to Port Angeles to shop TM for prom TM.
Jessica is the driving person. I try to say driving gay, but this is a
heterosexual
very
novel.
straight outing.
Although I would say that page 152, Jessica
Yes.
is trying to get Angela to talk about her type, and Bella covers for her so that she doesn't have to. I'm like, that is huge lesbian energy.
I wrote, let Angela be a lesbian.
Yeah. Come on. Also, what's an estrogen rush?
Yes. Yeah, that...
Bella says that she has an estrogen rush from her girls' night out.
And it's like, she spends time with men a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Charlie, like, she has men at school that she spends
Mike.
time with. I mean, obviously, Edward is the person that she can
Think about the most.
talk to the most. She's just spent quite a bit of time with Jacob, but it's not like she doesn't have women in her life.
Yeah, her mom. Maybe she just misses her mom.
Maybe she misses her mom. Yeah. I guess it is an adjustment going from living with, like, a maternal figure to a paternal figure.
Sounds like it's night and day, honestly.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
life and death.
Sounds like it's life and death.
Sounds like it's life and death. Bella describes Port Angeles as a beautiful little tourist trap, much more polished and quaint than Forks.
I completely forgot that this little scene existed. First, like, couple pages where Jessica and Angela and Bella are shopping and Jessica's asking Bella about her, like, dating history, basically.
Yeah.
I, like, totally forgot about this conversation. And Bella confirms that she's never had a boyfriend and that she didn't go out very much in Phoenix. Basically, Bella realizes that Tyler wants to take her, or Tyler's telling everyone that he's taking her to prom. And she's really mad about it.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot about them talking about that in this part of the book.
It's just, like, such an approach.
Oh,
to
yeah.
just give no indication or warning to the person, but be like, yeah, I'm taking them to prom.
I'm taking her to prom. She does say, do you think that if I ran him over with my truck, he would stop feeling guilty about the accident? He might give up on making amends and call it even. I love that.
So powerful. She talks about that later with Edward as well, which is hilarious. And, like, Edward, like, kind of smiles about it, which I really love. That's, like, the logical conclusion for her is, like, well, I have to fucking hurt him. And then he'll stop.
Bella, the superhero, like, the vampire superhero, is just, like, a vampire who runs you over with her truck.
Yeah.
She doesn't use her vampire powers on you. She just hits you with her truck.
Absolutely. And so then the girls, TM, shop for dresses.
My favorite line, Jessica's picking between two dresses, and Bella encourages her to go with the blue one. Why not play up the eyes?
Why
she
not
asks.
play up the eyes?
She narrates.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
It's really weird.
It's very out of place.
Yeah, because Bella never puts that much thought into the clothes that she's wearing through the narration. Like, she never talks about that.
We never get more than, like, the color of her shirt or blouse.
Yeah.
And, like, her jeans, I guess.
Yeah. And also Angela's pink dress brings out the honey tints in her light brown hair.
Wow. It's fascinating.
Fascinating.
I was wondering last episode when Bella was going to learn that the Cullens don't come when it's sunny, and this is it. In the book, it's Angela who shares that information with Bella rather than Jessica in the movie. Bella's, like, trying to casually ask why the Cullens are gone so much. Mm-hmm. I love Angela.
Angela is like, you know, when the weather's good, they go backpacking all the time. Even the doctor, they're all real outdoorsy. She doesn't ask one question, and then Bella's like, let alone the hundreds that Jessica would have unleashed. I was beginning to really like Angela.
Me too.
Same. Angela's just trying to give that information. I'm not an Angela. I'm a Jessica. If you have to pick between the two, I'm a Jessica.
Me, like, avoiding talking about the next part of the chapter.
Yeah, honestly. I was just reading this, and, like, in my soul, in my heart, I know what happens in this chapter.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie so many times. I've read the book multiple times.
Yeah.
And it's still, every single time, I'm like, oh, yeah, she's gonna go shopping with the girls. She's gonna go to the bookstore. And then they're gonna go eat dinner and go home.
And everyone's fine.
And everyone's fine. And then every single time I get to this chapter or this part of the movie, I'm like, oh, yeah, right.
Right.
This shit happens.
Right.
Yeah.
I know what happens, and it still, like, strikes fear in me, the way that Stephenie Meyer writes it. I'm like, is this a horror film?
It's also kind of, like, so quickly dismissed. Edward remarks about this later on, but I don't know, the car crash thing is something that, like, I mean, more people know about it, so it makes sense, but it's mentioned so much more, and it has so many more, like, references to it, like, through this whole Tyler prom thing, whatever, and then Bella's like, haha, almost got gang raped. Anyway. Right. Edward's a vampire.
Yeah. You ever almost get gang raped and then go on your first date?
Honestly? No.
What I'm mostly thinking about, so just plot-wise, what's happening here is Bella gets turned around looking for a bookstore in Port Angeles and is almost assaulted by 4 men.
Yeah.
I was just thinking a lot about how different it is from Life and Death, because we knew it was different just in terms of, like, what is happening, but, like, the way it feels to read it is so different as well.
Yeah, this I just feel like is so maybe much more of, like, a plausible thing that could happen, and something that Bella is, like, not adequately prepared for, because you can't ever be prepared for that, but she has a lot of, like, knowledge about what she is supposed to be doing in this situation.
Yeah.
And she's, like, listing things off, like, oh, I should walk faster, I could drop my purse, I should think about where my pepper spray is, all that stuff, and maybe that's a gender difference, but also, like, this is something that culturally people are told happens, is this, like, stranger jumping out of the bushes myth about rape and sexual assault, that statistically this is, like, not what a sexual assault case typically looks like. It's not the norm. But it's something that is very present in, like, culture and media as, like, the idea of what the norm is, versus, like, when Beau goes through this, it's like, oh, this is not relatable at all.
No.
He has no preparation for what to do being, like, held, like, a gun. And, like, changes everything. Most people don't have, like, gun safety or being held at gun point, like, training or any knowledge.
I feel like with Beau, it's a completely concocted situation.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bella in this, she immediately knows what's happening.
Yes.
The whole sequence is her being followed/herded, which is her word, which is not something that they do to Beau.
No.
He just, like, shows up, like, stumbles into these people and they have a gun.
Yeah.
So, like, her whole sequence is very different from his in so many ways, but also just, like, in the way that, like, there's, like, this sort of suspense, and we, like, are going through her thought process and, like, all those things in a way that with Beau it was just, like, so random and, like, fabricated.
I think fabricated is, like, a really great word for it, because, like, Stephenie had to even set up that scene earlier in the book by having Beau run into someone while he was with Charlie. He happened to stumble across the same people in Port Angeles, which is, like, this huge big coincidence, versus, like, this could happen to Bella anytime.
Yeah.
Versus, or, like, anyone anytime.
Yeah, anyone. Also very different from, like, her being a 17-year-old girl and being a target because of that is very different from, like, this group of people in Life and Death who targeted Beau because they thought he was a cop.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, there you could not be more different.
No.
There are only two genders, women and cops.
17-year-old girls and cops.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably, like, the scariest moment in the whole saga.
Yeah.
Like, it's scarier than a lot of the vampire shit that goes down.
I think, like, this is...
Because she's helpless here.
Yeah, I think this and, for me, this and the birth scene are, like, the most difficult things to read. A lot of the other stuff doesn't really compare. But I think you're right about the suspense, like... Not only does Bella immediately know what's going on, readers immediately know what's going on, too. Without Bella having to say explicitly.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
She doesn't say, like, I think these people are going to rape me. She says,
I think it might be worse than
theft.
Theft,
Being mugged. Yeah.
She describes one of the attackers as... It's so funny because I do talk about sexual violence so much in my day-to-day life that I'm in the habit of calling people survivors and harm doers. Which I kind of hate that language, but it's the language that's currently used in where I am situationally. And so I was like, the harm doer is described as... No, the attacker is described as, like, wearing a flannel shirt open over a dirty t-shirt, cut-off jeans, and sandals. And I feel very attacked by that description because I feel like I wear that a lot.
The signaling that Stephanie Meyer uses to let us know right away that these people are dangerous to Bella is really stereotypical in a way that is definitely, like, probably a little classist and inadvertently maybe even racist.
Calls them grimy. Too grimy to be tourists. Yeah. So, like, suggesting that
they're not dressed as businessmen, is what she says. They're, like, not coming home from the office.
And they're not tourists, so they must be, like, vagrants. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like others.
And one of them is described as dark-haired, but also one time is described as just dark.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is referring to his skin. I think it's, like, referring to, like...
Tall, dark, handsome kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
like without
it's a dark person, like...
Handsome. Yeah.
But...
Like, shady.
Still, I mean, that kind of just plays into the general idea of dark versus light and what is good and what is bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Completely stereotypical, honestly.
Yeah, I was thinking about how Bella is very methodological in the way that she thinks through this whole thing. And I was thinking this is, like, a really Virgo way to cope with being followed, hurted, or attacked. Like, I know my brain doesn't work like this. Like, this is not how I react. And these situations, she is very much running through flight, fight, freeze with, like, so much
clarity.
Yeah. Like, she's not thrown by this. Like, she's obviously nervous, but she's able to tell her, like, she's able to self-soothe.
Yeah, which is really cool. And also, is it unrealistic?
I don't know.
Does anyone react like that?
I don't know. I don't.
I feel like a lot of 17-year-old girls would not.
Yeah. And it's like, what
especially
in
if
her
they don't have
life
phones
has prepared her to be this able to do that?
Right. I mean, she says she's scared, but her narration is not frightened. We get, like, a very grounded narration from her, and then like later on, it's for whatever reason apparent that she's, like, totally fine.
Yeah.
That's what's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Bella undergoes a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
In the entire saga. Some conventional, some unconventional. Like, not everyone is almost killed in a car accident.
Yeah, not everyone is almost murdered by the child in them.
Yes.
Fighting to get out.
Right. Or, like, is stalked by a vampire.
Right.
But a lot of her trauma is not discussed.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how that impacts her beyond depression in some areas.
Someone that has gone through these things should be in therapy. Mm-hmm. I know I have said this before, but come on. Again, like, she knows all of these things. Break their nose, shove it into the brain, finger in the eye socket. Hate that.
I don't want to read that.
Yeah. Swallowing to build up a decent scream. Those are things that I know, but would never come into my brain at the right moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, Edward comes.
Yeah. Anyway, she's saved.
She's fine.
She's saved by Edward.
Spoiler
alert,
oh my God. Bella lives.
What a beautiful savior.
Again, really weird that I know, obviously, Edward's going through a lot that, like, he's thinking about when he comes to save Bella.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying not to kill these people.
Yeah.
But
I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts
I
about...
hear them.
I have a lot of thoughts about Edward being the one who needs to be comforted in this situation.
Excellent.
Number 1, unrealistic.
Yes.
That's mostly it.
Okay.
But, like, someone's almost assaulted her in any way. Like, you need to put your feelings aside and, like, make sure that person is okay. He does kind of do that. He asks if she's alright, and she's like, yeah. But it's
you can't take someone at their word when they've almost undergone, like, a traumatic situation. Wait, let me rephrase that. Yes, obviously take them at their word. But you also need to be more...
a level of care.
Doing more than just being like, are you okay? And them responding yes. Like, okay, yeah, of course they're gonna respond yes. Like,
right.
I don't know who that says more about. I think it says more about Stephanie.
Yeah, of course. It is not... just, like, I can't explain away Edward wanting to kill these guys because he's a vampire. That's not why he wants to kill them.
No, and it reminds me really strongly of this one person that I had a very challenging time with once when I was doing some fun sexual violence education. And they were there not as a survivor but as an ally, and they had people in their lives that had experienced sexual violence, and it's like, yeah, okay. But they really, like, were, like, centering themselves and, like, their emotional processing of the things that the people in their life had gone through. He would frequently, like, distract from, you know, the other things that we were talking about to be like, well, if somebody in my life went through this, like, I would just, like, beat that person up. And I'm like, first of all, not what we're talking about here. Second of all... Unhelpful. Not a sustainable solution to sexual violence at all. Like, and it just, like, there's so many people that react like that out there because, like, they're taking this analysis of violence that is, like, a personal thing rather than a systemic or power-based problem.
Yeah.
Edward's not going after these people or doesn't have the pull to go after these people because he doesn't want this to happen to someone else. He's doing it because it's emotionally upset him. It very much seems like. And so I'm, like, always annoyed when people react like that because it's like...
It's not about you.
It's not about you.
Edward is not politicizing the personal.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's so strange that he can't pull himself together enough to just, like, make sure that she's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way he does. He, like, literally drives her out of town for a second, and then later he's, like, making sure that she's eating, which I really appreciate personally.
It just takes him a while to get to that point, and, like, I guess nobody's perfect, but...
Yeah,
I don't know, he has people in his life that have experienced trauma before. So, like, you know, you'd think he would know a little bit more or have, like, a bigger...
I mean, didn't he kill Esme's husband?
Yeah.
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 Who was abusive towards her. Although he doesn't seem to treat Rosalie any better.
No. It's not to say that, like, Edward can't be emotionally affected by this.
Yeah,
but,
especially
like...
because he's hearing the thoughts of the rapist.
Which, like, enhances that feeling, but he should be able to set that aside and be able to process that in a space where Bella is not present.
Right.
Like, he has the emotional support of people that know so much more about this kind of thing because they've either experienced it or, like, been around it so much. Like, Carlisle, I'm sure, would be a great person to fucking talk this through with, which I'm sure eventually he does, but you don't need to be laying that all on Bella in this moment when she has just narrowly escaped being attacked.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess he's, like, trying to be self-aware and, like, he's trying to an extent. He's, like... He's trying, but he's still, like, vocalizing his problems.
Yeah, he's, like... It's just, like, it's very dramatic.
Yeah. He literally phrases it as, sometimes I have a problem with my temper, Bella. I'd be like, bitch, not my problem.
No. It's an uncomfortable chapter.
Yes.
I don't like it.
There's so much going on.
I do like their dinner.
Yeah. But also, I don't know.
How could anyone be in the headspace?
Yeah, it's unrealistic that...
Either.
Or unhealthy that they would just, like, go on a little date after this. I mean, not that it's, like, a normal date. They're definitely talking about very serious stuff, but they're talking about him.
Yeah.
They're not talking about her or any, like, things that are wrong with her.
Yeah.
Which, Stephanie writes her as being disinterested in doing.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
She's like, no, it's okay. I'm really good at repressing these things. And it's like, yeah, me too, but that doesn't, like, repressing things, like, doesn't mean that they aren't affecting you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he says he's waiting for her to go into shock, and to me it reads like shock.
Yeah.
Or denial.
Yeah.
But then she never processes it.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense. So it would make sense as denial, but it doesn't make sense that it never goes anything beyond that.
Yeah.
And I don't like that for Bella. In the movie, it's this moment where Edward is convincing Jessica and Angela that he can drive Bella home, and they're just like, okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more fleshed out here, in that Bella winks at Angela because Angela is trying to figure out from her expression whether or not that's something that Bella wants.
Yeah.
So it's more of like Bella's decision.
I super appreciated the way that they handle this in the book, because it's like,
you shouldn't just like leave this friend that you were looking for an hour with some guy that you don't know.
Yeah.
Just because he's pretty.
Yeah. It's so not what you should do.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a brief segue to do something that I really enjoy, which is called reading the Yelp reviews for Bella Italia. If you haven't, it's so worth it. There's 3 brands of reviews of Bella Italia. There's people that come because of Twilight and are fans. There's people who do not come because of Twilight, mention Twilight nonetheless, and are really upset about teenagers being all over the restaurant. These are more like relevant in 2008 and 2010ish. And there's this 3rd brand of review that's like, yeah, it's the Twilight restaurant, you know, that are still like fair to the restaurant and don't like 1-star it. And so those are very fun. So people are saying things like, to be completely honest, we only came here because of Twilight, but I'm sure glad we did. We had both the seafood pasta and the mushroom ravioli, and both were divine. There is, I came here because of Twilight. Hee hee, Edward, Cullen, and Bella came here for their first date, and I ordered what Bella ordered, the mushroom ravioli, and it was delicious. Edward didn't order anything to eat because, you know, he doesn't eat food. He's a vampire. And then, I don't care in the least about Twilight. I do care a lot about pasta. This was great. I want to be there so badly. Yeah. Good Italian, great wine, nice place, but overrun with teen girls due to Twilight.
Don't they have like a shrine in the corner to Twilight? They have like a Bella's booth.
Yes, they have a Bella's booth. This is Bella's booth, so it's this like round booth in the corner. It looks like a couple bottles of wine and a copy of the Twilight books up in the corner above the booth. And
we should just go get hammered at Bella Italia.
I would love to go get fucked up at Bella Italia. Thank you for that little mini segue. If you haven't already, I would highly recommend reading through the Yelp reviews of not only Bella Italia, but any Forks location that is related in any way to Twilight, or Port Angeles location. It's so worth it.
So now we're transitioning from talking about sexual violence to talking about
dinner.
First dates.
Okay, that's great. What was your first date like?
I don't really know I've never really had an experience where like someone like asked me on a date and then I went on a date. Okay. Like to start a relationship.
Can you make one up? Can you pick a time when you hung out with someone that you considered your first date?
I guess like with my ex, we went on a double date in Portland to a pizza place. We also got gelato.
How do you feel about a double date being the first date?
Fine. They were our friends.
Okay. Were you friends with this person before you dated them?
No. We had hung out before. Yeah. But I don't remember if we went anywhere. It's not important. Right. To me. Right. What was your first date?
I was in high school. It was with JJ, my current partner. Forever partner. We were obviously in high school. We were 15, or he was 16, but I was 15. We couldn't drive. So we hung out at his house. I can tell you what I was wearing. Wow. Also, I was wearing dark blue jeans and a white t-shirt and a yellow and white flannel shirt. Wow. And I don't remember what shoes I was wearing.
What was JJ wearing?
I don't know that. Sorry. But we hung out at his house, and we went outside, and he had a trampoline, and we laid down on the trampoline and read The Fault in Our Stars out loud to each other.
Oh my god.
Did you not know that?
I think I did know that, and I repressed it. I don't like being asked on a date. Like, okay. I mean, like, now maybe. Like, if Alex and I are, like, going out, we'd be like, it's a date. Like, yeah. But, like, I don't like...
JJ and I will go get gas to put in the car, and I'll be like, oh, I love this date.
But, I'm very anti-establishment on most dating protocol things. Yeah. Most relationship things. They make me vastly uncomfortable because I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah. Sam's sweating because I asked her about dates.
Yeah, I'm really warm now. You know, last episode you were talking about the Bella Eat Dinner Challenge, and I think that Edward is the number one.
Edward is on my side.
Yeah, he's really trying to get her to eat, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Because she ends up being really thirsty without realizing it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of bullying people into eating. Obviously,
taking care of themselves in general.
Taking care of themselves, but...
Especially when they're having a hard time.
Yeah, especially when they've experienced something like this.
Yeah.
For some reason, the first time I saw the Twilight movie, I remember from the book this moment where Bella watches Edward's interaction with the waitress, and that really stood out to me in the book because Bella's so bothered by this, like, blatant flirting, and so I was kind of missing that energy from the movie, and I remember that from the first time I saw the movie in theaters. I remember being like, I wish they had played up this waitress flirting with Edward.
It could be so funny.
Yeah, it could be hilarious.
Oh my God.
And I remember thinking that even way back when, and still every time I watch the movie, I'm like, this could have been so funny.
It's so subtle in the movie.
I think it also would have provided a better segue from this incredibly, like, dramatic...
Yeah, it could be comic relief.
...to this, like... bizarre waitress flirting with Edward concerned about Bella like perplexed like kind of dynamic, which I mean I think it was just a missed opportunity, but I think it's written really interestingly in the book, and I like that there's this like third party kind of circling around them and like
real world cutting in,
like providing that contrast to their like absurd conversation.
I feel like there is a perhaps misogynistic description of the host. It seems like Stephenie Meyer has something against blondes.
Yeah, I think that the way that she treats Rosalie, the Denali's, Lauren, this hostess, like, yeah.
It's just like Bella ends up seeing these people in a negative light, or has like some sort of negative relationship with these blondes.
Yeah.
And some sort of antagonistic relationship, either Bella towards them or them towards Bella.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really dramatic that Edward pays the waitress, or the hostess, to sit somewhere more private.
It's like, this is a small town restaurant.
You could just ask nicely.
You could just be like, do you mind if we sit in that section?
Yeah.
You don't have to slip them
money. Like, sure, give your waitstaff lots of money, but also, that's so dramatic.
It's like a weird energy to bring into that space.
I feel like you attract more attention to yourself if you're just, like, throwing out lots of cash.
Yeah. I like this conversation about him dazzling people.
Yeah, his effect on people. I like that conversation, too.
Yeah.
It's really, it's kind of direct.
Bella's like, you haven't noticed that you get your way so easily? I'm like, haven't you noticed by reading their minds?
Yeah.
Or do you think everyone is always so starstruck and dumb?
It says he seemed confused.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure some people just feel, like, dazed, and so he doesn't, like, know what they're thinking, but it's like, people definitely look at him all the time, and they're, like, thinking thirst thoughts.
Yes.
Yes.
Edward is giving Bella his jacket, and and it's described like, I suddenly realized that I had never once noticed what he was wearing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true for Beau in Life and Death.
Oh.
Unless I'm forgetting it.
I don't know.
Maybe we just haven't gotten to the part of the book yet, and I'm misremembering, but I feel like we heard a lot about what Edith was wearing.
At least later on. Yeah. I know that by the time we get into the next section and they're going...
The violet.
The lavender sweater, which I bought one of those after I read that chapter.
I can't tell.
I don't really know for sure, so...
I would have to double check, and I don't think we have a copy with us.
No.
I also feel like, in the same little section, I feel like, canonically, he should not be muscular.
Why? Because like, he's a little boy?
Well, yeah, he's 17, and...
Does being a vampire just make you more muscular?
I don't know.
Does it give you a definition?
It just, like...
Or does it make you just stony?
I wish it didn't. I feel like it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense for it to.
It doesn't make sense, and so it's like he should be kind of like emaciated from
he did
the literal influenza.
Yeah, maybe he was a strong young boy with a job on the quarry.
Okay.
In Chicago.
Okay. Maybe when you become a vampire, you return to your like most ideal physical form. So you're not, like, the wasted away version of yourself from when you were dying, but I feel like it makes more sense for you to be the wasted away version of yourself from when you were dying.
Well, I mean, it does fix you. It heals you. Like, when Bella is becoming a vampire, like, her broken ribs are mended.
Yeah, which makes sense.
She used to be, like, she was sunken in from the pregnancy, and then her cheeks became less hollow, and blah, 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 blah. So it like fixes your ailments, at least your physical ailments, but then like what is considered a physical
yeah,
ailment?
it
Is
implies
ugliness a physical ailment?
Right.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about. I think that's something that's been speculated about a lot.
Right.
Is like
the implications for like beauty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was just like they appeared really hot to humans, and then like when she becomes a vampire, like suddenly she can see that they're actually really ugly and decrepit looking.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Like they look like what they looked like on their deathbed.
Yeah, Edward's like,
really
I can't
cool.
change. No, I can't change you into a vampire.
I can't
sorry.
change you, sorry. That's so funny.
Yeah, but yeah, she notices that he's muscular.
It'd be probably
muscular
really,
chest.
really funny because, like, I mean, obviously, like, Edward would be fucked up from being so sick,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, Carlisle was attacked, like, Esme would be, like, hurt, but, I mean, like, Emmett would probably still be fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be so funny if, like, all of them were, like, really ugly, except for, like, one of them that was like, I'm fine.
I'm the big boy.
Yeah, like Alice.
Yeah.
She'd be like, actually, I'm really cute.
I was like so delirious when Edward compliments. He says, that color blue looks lovely with your skin. Shut the fuck up. Oh
I
my
know.
god. What's happening?
He's like, what do humans do on dates? Compliment each other's skin.
Yeah.
Like, so
True.
weird.
Edward on a date. Honestly, like if they were like trying to have a normal date, he would be out of his mind.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be able to handle himself.
Absolutely.
He would just be talking about her skin.
Yeah. She talks about his eyes and her theory about how he's more crabby when his eyes are black. They talk through some of her questions.
They're just suddenly deciding to be communicative.
Yeah.
Which I love.
I do love this. It's about damn time.
It's kind of like they've hit the last like straw or whatever. Like they have to talk about it now.
Mm-hmm.
And also like she's figuring it out and he kind of knows that. So he followed her to Port Angeles.
Yeah.
Problematic. I would like to say that in vampire lore, vampires do stalk. Not necessarily like that they stalk their victims, which they do, but I think traditionally vampires become fixated on people or things and will follow people or like just becomes like so infatuated to the point where like maybe they'll like just follow someone around just to watch them.
Yeah.
So like that's a vampire thing, but also it's not painted as that. It's not like painted as his vampire nature to do that, so it's like very interesting that he's chosen to do this.
Yeah.
We can assume that it's not because he's a vampire.
Right, because otherwise his siblings would also be probably following people around.
Because the only time that other vampires will do that is like James being a tracker.
Yeah, which is a different
Hunting people down.
situation.
Yeah.
I was reading this really interesting thing about, I was like on a mental health account, it was like an OCD account, and like talking about like the vampire counting thing. So like if you spill like 1 million grains of ice in front of you, they would have to pick every single one up by one by one.
I've read that.
And have to count them, which like somebody was drawing a comparison between that and like also the fixation thing in OCD, which I thought was hilarious because I have OCD and it's really funny to think about.
You're basically a vampire.
I was like, oh wow, I cannot believe.
You're a vampire without the superpowers.
I'm a vampire without the superpowers that is in a very, very inconvenient way.
Yeah, just the fixation.
Yeah. My superpower is showering. My superpower is being extremely clean at all times.
But yeah, he followed her, so that's probably not cool.
No.
It's not cool. I mean, did he save her? Yes.
Yes.
But was it concocted in this very saviory way? Like, this is why people criticize the story for, like, Bella being a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Because she's constantly put, at least in this book, and probably arguably other ones, that she's put in situations where she cannot save herself.
Right. Where we would never expect a regular person.
Yeah.
TM. Like Bella is to, like, save themselves from a car crash or from...
Although she handles it really well.
Yeah.
So maybe she's not a regular person.
I don't know. I was thinking also about in this scene, like, Bella tries to touch Edward's hands, and she succeeds once. Edward must be so touch-starved.
Remember in Life and Death, where they become very touchy with each other at this point?
Yeah.
Like in the car, they're holding hands and stuff?
Uh-huh. They accelerate very quickly, and Edward must be so touch-starved. Who is he touching?
I bet Esme makes him hug.
Yeah.
For like 5 minutes
Probably
every day.
Emmett.
Yeah, Emmett's huggy.
Yeah.
And Alice.
Alice.
And every once in a while on the holidays, Carlisle.
Yeah. Son. Yeah.
Yeah, outside of his family, no.
Mm-mm.
That's the only people that he has. He does say this funny little thing. He tells her, only you could get into trouble in a town this small. You would have devastated their crime rate statistics for a decade, you know? I'm like, are you victim blaming?
I also kind of felt that. I was like, I mean, yes, is this a realistic situation? Yes and no. But also, this could happen anywhere.
Yeah.
And does.
Yeah.
Fun fresh.
Just really fun violence things. I like that he, and this section says, you're much more observant than I gave you credit for. I'm like, this is what we've been saying the whole time.
He also makes this weird comment. They're talking about all the times that she's almost died and he saved her. Mm-hmm. So she's like, did you ever think that maybe my number was up the first time with the van and that you've been interfering with fate? And he says, that wasn't the first time.
Yeah.
Your number was up the first time I met you. Referring to, like, the day that in biology class that he literally almost, like, killed her and everyone else.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting how they talk about it there as if, like, she says that, yes, she does remember it. And she, like, intuitively understands
what he's talking about.
Yeah. We didn't really, like, in her narrative, understand that maybe she had pieced that together.
Yeah.
Like, in this section, she kind of lets out that she has even more information, or that she's, like, put together so much more than she's already listed, and she's listed a lot. Also, about the stalking thing, she's, like, happy about it, which is such a choice.
Stockholm Syndrome-y.
Yeah, kind of definitionally.
The information about him reading minds comes out, talks about how he tracked her, and then returns back to this idea of, like, wanting to kill the people that almost attacked her. And I was, like, thinking, like, God, Carlisle would be so pissed if he killed them.
Yeah. Honestly, Edward would too, I think. And
yeah.
Bella, I think Bella would be mad.
Everybody would be upset about that.
It's
like that's not
they don't do anything about the situation. Like, Bella never tells Charlie, not that I believe in the police.
Yeah.
But, like, nothing is done to prevent this from happening to someone else. Like, they are not reported to any local organizations. Like, the men, I mean, Bella doesn't undergo any care, any aftercare.
Yeah.
She has, like, kind of the greatest distraction in the world, which is, like, the supernatural.
Yeah.
So I can see why maybe that feels insignificant to her in the face of something traumatic. But all of a sudden, he's just like, are you ready to go home?
Yeah.
I'm like, did she finish eating? So far, she's had 2 raviolis.
Yeah.
I guess she's probably done.
Yeah.
And then she's, like, thinking about kissing him.
Oh my god, yes. She's, like, comparing them to Mike and Jessica, thinking about how, like, they're almost at first kiss stage, and she's like, wow, I'm glad he's not able to read my thoughts. And I was like, wow.
It's dead inside.
We had no joy on our faces when we said that. I'm happy for them, and
that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It's sad because we know it's not going to happen for...
It'll happen in a couple chapters.
Yeah, but, like, that's, you know, a while.
Yeah.
Poor Bella.
It's just not...
She's just so... I was saying to Sam, I don't think we've vocalized this yet. Bella was so horny on this date.
Yeah.
Irresponsibly so.
Right. Yeah. This reminds me of a more explicit scene of Game of Thrones where I don't know what season it is, but there's one character, a woman, who is almost assaulted by, I don't know, a number of men, I think. And this is a person who has been assaulted multiple times before, and she's almost assaulted by some men, and then her, like, love interest comes and saves her from them, and then they, like, immediately have sex after. This is Sam and Gilly.
Yeah.
I remember when that happened, like, there was a lot of outrage, because it's like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, no one's gonna want to have sex after they're almost raped.
No.
This is, like, a micro version of that to me.
Absolutely. It's like a 17-year-old version of that.
Yeah. So now we're gonna do our mini segment, Love at First Bite. It's my turn.
Crunch. That's me biting into an apple.
One of these days we're gonna do it, for real. I didn't put any of the, age or whatever. We'll just say 18.
Okay.
3 miles away.
Oh.
So the photos are, like, they're all candid photos.
Okay.
Like, mostly in the woods, and some of them are, like, Polaroids, like, photos of Polaroids, but those are also candids in the woods.
Okay.
And it says, the bio is, artsy type, not totally lame, will read books with you all day long, then write a song about it. 2 asterisks, this bio was created by my siblings, I'm here against my will. Song, the bio song is Claire de Lune.
Edward?
Yeah.
Swipe right.
I just don't think that he would ever be on Tinder. But there's so many possibilities.
If he was, I would swipe right.
Yeah. Good. Glad we're on the same page.
So, for the next part of this episode, we're going to have a guest star. Her name is Lily. She is someone that I know.
I also know her now.
She works with Alex. You're listening consecutively to episodes.
If you know who Alex is.
Yeah, and she,
If you know, you know.
if you know, you know. It's really insider information at this point. And, she was an English major, which is, I'm gonna defer a lot of expertise to her now.
Oh yeah, I've already thought of a question.
Yeah,
Oh, excellent. I love that. So, much like yourselves, I loved Twilight. My claim to fame within Twilight is that my two best friends and I made videos that reenacted the trailers. And the New Moon one exists still. It exists somewhere. It's in my mother's house. I don't know where it is. I've tried to find it.
You played Bella.
I played Bella.
Very important.
Very important. I always played Bella because I was Bella.
You are the main character.
I'm the main character.
Yeah.
I'm very clumsy, so I really identified with her in that way. But my friend Megan always played Edward. I think I'm going to send this to them, so hi Megan, hi Brianna. But Megan always played Edward and Jacob, and my friend Brianna, who's my best friend in the entire world, played every other character. She was like Jacob and she was Alice and the villains, like, and Bella's dad, and like all these
Isn't
like
there
really
a saying that's like one man wolf pack?
maybe that was
I may
Brianna,
have
whatever that is.
made that up, but I feel like that's
That was
very-
her. Oh, and my dog played Wolf Jacob. We did.
What
Oh
kind
my
of dog,
God.
though?
She's a chocolate. We did this. Oh my god! I swear I
Twilight,
can find
you
it because
ruined
this
this.
is like peak like Windows Movie Maker editing.
Oh my God.
Was we had Megan run down like my back porch, and then we like phased in a clip of my dog Luna like running
That's
into
so
the
good.
backyard, and like she was like, and it was Megan like taking her shirt off, and, like pretending to like do that whole scene. And then another highlight is that we had this like zip line that we got for Christmas one year, like really, really just like a wire, like super unsafe.
Just a wire.
Just a wire. And then it had this thing that like eventually broke. But the scene where she's like jumping off the cliff in the trailer, or like on the motorcycle, and she's like, I'll do anything to see him. It's me going down the zip line with a helmet on. So it was we were self-aware even then, but
wow.
That's a great level of irony. Did you ever reenact the birth scene?
no, we didn't do Breaking Dawn. We were a little too old, but we tried to do Eclipse. Like we started filming Eclipse, and we were like, we're too old to do this.
Can we
Like, we
pay
were
you
like,
money
I don't know
to
how
do
old I
it
was.
now?
Yes, absolutely. I would happily reprise
We
my
might have
role.
the funds.
Yeah.
That will be a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, great. I
Wow.
would love that. So you had some pre-thoughts
Some pre-thoughts.
that
Yes.
thoughts that you prepared
Thoughts that I prepared.
that were pre to this sitting down.
Pre to the sitting down. Yes, I wanted to talk about how Bella is boring girl representation. And how that's something that as a boring girl in middle school I really identified with. And I think probably influenced me to become more boring. Or at least to like pretend I was more boring.
Can we define boring?
Okay, let's define boring. Bella doesn't have that many interests. Like she cooks and she likes to read. That's also that's her like sort of main thing, and that was my sort of main thing in middle school. And high school was like I like to read, and like she did make me feel like that was okay. I was like, okay, I don't need other interests, but also I identified with the fact that she was just very responsible and like a good student and like read and like didn't do anything else. And I was like, that's like how I am. She doesn't
Good girl representation.
Good girl
Good girl.
representation because that's what I felt like I was. But also how she, I mean, I think that's obviously detrimental to so many young women in so many ways. And then my other thing was emo girl representation.
I love those.
About how she's so emotional. And that's something that I think is, again, I feel like you guys have talked about this a lot. Like, people read Twilight and they're like, she doesn't have any feelings, or like, they watch the movie mostly, because Kristen Stewart is doing her best to play such an awkward character. But they're like, she doesn't have any feelings, she doesn't have opinions. But she's very emotional and very angry and very sad all the time. And those kind of nice.
She like lets it out.
She lets it out. She's mad constantly in the books.
She vocalizes it too. She like not only lets it out to other people, but I think she says it to herself. Like, I am depressed. I am angry. Things like that. That I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah. Not at all.
Can I just take a moment to tell middle school Lily that she's not boring because she reads?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Middle school Lily, deep down in here, loves that. Thank you. I'll let her know. My thesis was about, like, women's coming-of-age novels, and in many ways I regret not having done a thesis on Twilight, because I think I could have
Me
done
too.
so many good things.
I'm in the middle of one right now, and every day that I look at the document that's empty, it's empty.
This could be about Twilight.
I'm like, this could be about Twilight.
But it's also, like, my advisor was very into, like, she taught a class on The Wire, which is a TV show, and she was very much, like, even, like, quote-unquote cultural trash, or, like, what we think of as, like, trashy media, like, has significance, and it has, like, cultural significance at the very least on, like, the young women who are reading Twilight, and therefore it's something that, like, is worth being studied.
Totally.
And so she would have been so down with me writing about Twilight, probably. But the thesis I wrote was about, like, development and, like, young women. Part of that was about friendships and, like, female-female friendships, and about, like, interplays of identification, and then also, like, queerness, and, like, queering Twilight would have been such a fun thesis to write.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. Because Bella does have those, like, individual, like, she has Jessica, who's sort of, like, kind of a, like, mirror figure, like, friend figure, but also not in some ways, and, like, I feel like she has a chance to create that friendship, and then there's Angela, who she really likes, and, like, doesn't really create that friendship, and there's Alice, but, like, so much of Twilight is this extremely heterosexual, like, the person that you identify most with is supposed to be your, like, partner, who is supposed to be the opposite sex.
And also possibly who, like, wants to kill you.
Yeah. That whole thing is a lot.
And then, like, it's kind of, like, the second person from Edward is Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's not
between
one of
two
those women in her life.
Yeah. She has, like, really fragmented relationships with other women.
Yeah.
She's not allowed to, like, be with them
No.
in the way that she should.
Yeah. Like, and I think Alice is supposed to be posited as, like, the closest thing to that. Like, Alice is her friend. Alice is her, like, buddy in this sense, but that's so connected to Edward.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much, like, just very morbid.
She never, there's no, I think, at the end of the saga, no closure with Renee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
That's also...
Her mom is supposed to be her best friend. We could unpack that, too.
We can unpack that whole relationship.
Yeah, it's weird that whole thing is just kind of tossed aside and explained away as like, oh, well, Renee doesn't live in the area, so
she doesn't
it's
know.
not going to matter.
It's like, sorry, your daughter's not aging, and also she's a crazy looking baby. Like, what?
We've been thinking recently, as we've been reading, that maybe Stephanie Meyer isn't as bad of a writer as people, including me, have said in the past. People, me.
I've said things that I no longer agree with.
Yeah.
In regards to
And I
all
was
the time.
wondering your English major opinion on that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think she's a funny writer. I also think that, like, bad writing is a very Western canon-focused thing, and, like, we're like, oh, this is good writing. Like, The Great Gatsby is good writing. And it's like, how do we really know? And, like, what does that, like, even mean? And, like, there are certain things that are bad writing, but I also think that, like, if you have a story that's compelling, like, that's enough. And that's sort of something that I was thinking about a lot this summer when I was, like, out of college and reading books, like, just for fun again, not because I was, like, told to in class, and then told to in class and then didn't read those. There's a whole John Mulaney bit about how he went to college to have somebody tell him to read Jane Austen, and then he didn't do it. I'm like, oh, no. That's what I did.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
But, like, I think that for me, like, if a story isn't, like poetically written or something, if it still has a compelling plot, like, that's a good book. And if I read a book that, like, isn't compellingly written, and I don't care about the characters, and I don't care about the story, like, that's the bad book. But maybe it's good for someone else also. Like, I think that, like, good writing isn't necessarily part of it, but also Stephanie Meyer's a funny writer, and Bella has very funny interiority, and, like, and again, that's the thing that people don't say is, like, boring girl representation. Like, I'm joking, but she's also, like, has all these thoughts and feelings and opinions that, like, are present in the text, and it's, like, very... I think that also part of that is maybe because Bella is Stephanie Meyer to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like, it really seems like it.
Yeah.
But Midnight Sun is also good.
Yeah.
I can't say the same thing about Life and Death, but
That's okay.
Midnight Sun
That's trash.
is really good, and, like, I don't know, she has really good characters. Like, the things that she does with them and the choices that she makes are not always the same choices that I would make.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. Like, and they have funny banter, and, like, they have really
Yeah.
funny dialogue in a way that, like, a lot of books don't. Like, so many books have such shitty dialogue, and even if they're good books, it's like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I think that the characters in Twilight actually talk like teenagers. Like, they're so dramatic, which is, like, I think also people are like, teenagers don't talk like that. It's like, no, they absolutely do. Like, that's how everyone talked.
Yeah. Especially if you were a teenager that had been alive for 100 years.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Like, he's both, like, a Victorian man and, like, or no, is it Victorian?
It's early 1900s.
Early 1900s. What is that?
100 years ago.
When? 120 years
He
ago.
was changed in 1918. Well,
So
he's
he's
been
17.
a vampire for 102
Oh,
years.
okay.
He's
So he's
119.
He's 119.
No. He's 100. Yes.
Yep.
You were the math there. Alright, anyway.
17 plus 102.
But have you read, like, a lot of YA fiction? Because I feel like maybe some of, like, Bella is so expressive, and we get so much of her experience through her narration because it is her narration in a way that you don't get with other I feel like not as many, like, kind of, like, adult fiction novels are written in first person, or, like, I mean, there's not a lot of adult fiction in this genre that isn't, like, romance exclusively or something like that.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, there aren't a lot of, like, first-person narratives in adult writing. But also, like, I mean, and that's also something that sort of, I think, is similar to, again, my thesis. Like, The Bell Jar, I talked about how, like, that was sort of, like, one of the first novels that were, like, really these, like, very, like expository about mental health in, like, ways that were good and also not good. But, like, one of the first, like, woman writing about, like, really intense mental health related experiences, and also, like, from the first person, and, like, you know, the whole time it's Sylvia Plath, like, she's writing about herself, like, that's a book just about her. And so I think it does bear a lot of similarities to that in some ways, because it is, like, this really intense, like, proximity that you get to the character. And I think that in some ways that could be, like, that might be part of what's off-putting for some people about it, because you're, like, right there with Bella, and you're, like, experiencing all these, like, really intense, like, teenage emotions.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so good, because, like, you are right there, like, really uncomfortably close to this very emotional character who's dating a guy that wants to kill her. And then you're like, and that's why you're like, wow, this is fucked up. But it's also, like, that's good writing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And there aren't that many adult novels, but I read a book recently that's called Meyer of Rest and Relaxation, which is a crazy fucking book that you should read. But that reminded me a lot of The Bell Jar, because that's in first person. And it's not a YA novel. It is, like, an adult novel that sounds like it's about porn. It's not. It's but, like, also good. But it's like about, like, a woman in her 20s. But, like, in some ways, the writing in Twilight is, like, very similar at times to the writing in Harry Potter. Like, I don't think that there's that much of a difference between those two books. Like, J.K. Rowling wrote a really good story. She's not necessarily a great writer. They can spit sentences out, and the sentences, like, have good cadence and don't always start with I, and, like, follow, like, the basic things that make you, like, not hate writing. So that's my official opinion. Stephanie's a good writer.
Stephanie Meyer was a like a literature major as well, like an English major, and people always, like, point to the fact that this was the first thing she ever wrote. I'm like, she definitely wrote stuff in college.
Yeah.
First thing that was published. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Like,
I would love also to read the other things that she wrote before Twilight.
Yeah.
I, like, wonder
Oh my
what she was
God.
writing about, because this, like,
Yeah.
this came to her in a dream, and
Yeah.
it's like, what else is up in that? Like, I know the host,
what is she
but
thinking?
In this episode, we were kind of discussing the almost violence that Bella experiences, and, like, kind of the weird juxtaposition of that with her, like, date-ish.
What I was saying about The Bell Jar is that there's a somewhat similar, at least, like, almost sexual assault that happens in the beginning of that book, and a lot of my thesis was about how, like, a lot of Esther, the character in The Bell Jar's response, or, like, her depression and her descent in depression and, like, numerous suicides can be read in some sense as a response to this event that is basically coded as a rape. Like, it's not actually a sexual assault, but it is really close to it, and specifically in the context of the 1950s, like, you're not going to write that scene. Like, that's probably not going to make it into your book, especially as, like, a young woman writer that's hoping to get published. But how, like, a lot of her, like, trauma responses after that event, like, really express that as being, like, a significant event of her. And, like, of course, there's all these factors. Even though it's not an actual physical violence, depending on how you, like, quantify. Like, you can't even really quantify that kind of thing. But the point is that you can't quantify it, and, like, the sort of, like, mental effects and trauma effects are going to be similar. Mm-hmm. And, like, there is a reading to be done of Twilight that, like, involves that. And, like, again, this weird juxtaposition where she has this really traumatic experience, like, literally probably a lot of people in the world's worst nightmare. Like, that's, like, a, like, really scary situation. Yeah, like, I've had nightmares like that. And then she goes on this date, and, like, you could read, and just in the very brief time that I was reading that chapter while you guys were making teachers still, she refers to Edward as her perpetual savior.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, he is, but also, like, what a weird thing to say about your fucking high school boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, and, like, is this, like, a woman who is, like, clinging to the person who saved her and maybe, like, having, like, a response to this, and then also, but, like, Bella has this weird violence thing where she's, like, not afraid of violence. She doesn't, like, feel like it affects her because she feels like she, like, can fight it. And, like, she goes through, she's like, okay, like, how do I, like, fight them? And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, scream to anything but that. But, like, she feels like she's so invulnerable, which I think is also a high school girl thing who hasn't been in the world for that long. It doesn't, like, and she says, like, I think that she's, like, doesn't drop her bag because she's like, I think that, like, there's something worse than robbers. Mm-hmm. And so she knows, but she also doesn't know probably because she maybe hasn't had an experience like that before. And then gets sort of flung into this relationship. And, like, if this were not a supernatural novel where love conquered all, like, how would that then affect their relationship?
It's never discussed again.
No.
Like this instance.
But also it doesn't, like, because their sexual relationship is not something that happens for a really long time. Like, it also is maybe something that isn't coming out because they have this extremely platonic, also extremely, like, safe relationship. Mm-hmm. So maybe, like, that's also something that she really wants because he is her perpetual savior. Or, like, and, like, then again, maybe you can even think, like, she did grow up in Phoenix. Like, maybe this isn't the first experience she's had with men following her. Like,
well, she does keep saying how safe she feels with him, which is interesting to feel unsafe somewhere else.
Yeah, like with other humans.
I don't know.
It makes me wonder how, and I don't remember this because I haven't read New Moon in a really long time, but how she reacts to, or Eclipse, where Jacob kisses her.
Eclipse.
That's Eclipse. That's the next time that something like this comes up. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of coded into the way that James is stalking her at the end of the text, but the next time that something, like, explicitly sexual happens to her at all, really, other than, like, her, like, chase little make-outs with Edward.
Mm-hmm. Other than the leg hitch TM?
The leg hitch. Is with Jacob, and it's non-consensual, and I don't remember the narration around that because I haven't read it in a really long time.
I feel like I remember, I read it,
angry.
Yeah, she is angry. I read it a couple of years ago. My immediate thought while you're describing that is, like, her going through, like, fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. And I think she's trying to fight it at first, but he's so strong that I think I remember reading that she just accepts it and, like, goes completely still and waits for him to be finished.
Which is such a, like, direct, like, you're in the middle of traumatic event. Like, that's like textbook. Like,
which is so much more, I think, realistic than what happened to her in this case.
Yeah. But it could be influenced by that. I also think there's probably something, like really nice for her about, like, Edward not really wanting to have sex with her, because, like, it does feel like this, like, there's not, like, she doesn't feel pressure. Like, he obviously, like, wants her, but there's also this whole other issue where he, like, wants to kill her. And that's, like, sort of the more immediate thing. That's, like, and maybe, honestly, that's easier to process as, like, a 17-year-old girl, that, like, it's easier to understand, like, this person wants to murder me versus this person wants to, like, abuse me, basically.
Yeah, there's always the promise that it'll 100% of the time, whenever it happens, be on her terms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is nice.
As
and
long
that's,
as
like,
she's a human.
Honestly, something that, like, we should value about Twilight, like, in terms of, like, you know, teaching young women, like, consent. Like,
which is so funny because it's, like, totally not the way that she wrote it.
Yeah.
She meant it.
Yeah.
She meant it as, like, chastity.
Yeah, chastity. But it's also, like, but she also does, like, really write that he, like, really, really wants to have sex with her. Like, that's kind of clear, I feel like.
Yeah, eventually, I think they have to talk about it, and he's clear about it. But he's also,
she
like,
also really wants to. That's also part of it.
She really wants to. He's connected this idea of, like, virtue to, like, her virginity and like waiting till marriage.
Yeah.
So
From like literally 119 years, well, not at that point, like 100 years before he had like had these internalized
It is
values.
crazy that he's a
Yeah.
virgin. Also, like,
Yeah.
that's insane. There's definitely like a ton of problematic discourse like online at the time that Twilight came out, and people were like bashing it, and they're like. Like, I think there was definitely a ton of, like, if your boyfriend is sparkly and doesn't want to have sex with you, that doesn't mean he's a vampire. And it's like,
oh yeah,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that happened and people
Really,
said that.
yeah.
And, like,
I haven't heard that in so long.
I know. That was like a blast
That
from the
threw
past.
me back.
People always were like, Twilight's gay, and then like now people are like, Twilight's gay.
It's like probably the energy that I probably expended on like defending how Twilight was not gay back in the day, at least in my brain, to now where I'm like, Twilight is gay.
Yeah.
It will be gay.
Oh, that reminds me of something else I really wanted to talk about. It was because, another thesis thing. So Rene Girard is this theorist who's, I forget like most of his deal, but I used him in my thesis because he has this theory that the like intensity of emotions, just for lack of whatever he was saying, between two rivals of the same love object is just as sexual and just as potent as the feelings that they have for the love object.
Yeah.
And so I talked about this because like so half my thesis was about the bell jar, half of it was about Sula by Toni Morrison. And part of Sula is that the main character Nell marries this guy. Her best friend Sula like comes back home and sleeps with her husband. And I'm like, Nell and Sula like are gay together, and like, this is like a whole like acting this out about how like they really want to be together, but they have to do it through the husband because like still like it's the 1970s, like people still aren't really like, oh, like they have this complex female relationship that can be all of these things, and like they love each other in a way that is not just friends, very clearly in the book. But I think Edward and Jacob are a really good example of this.
Yeah.
Because there is so much there between them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the more interesting way to read their love triangle, and like there's a conversation that they have in Eclipse that's in the book and in the movie.
It's like, I'm hotter than you.
But also in the they're in the tent and Bella's like kind of asleep. And
Yeah, that's my, I think, it's not my favorite part of the whole series, but it's up there.
it's really funny. And Edward, I think, I'm pretty sure this is also in the book, but it definitely is in the movie. Edward says to Jacob, maybe like in another life, or like if this wasn't our situation, I would actually like you. And Jacob is like, no.
Which is so much more than Edward being like, we could be friends. Jacob's like, no, we'll never be. And it's like, you want him.
Yeah.
It's also so much more interesting to think about supernatural relationships between like two different beings, rather than like a human and a human and.
Yeah.
Not to mention like the theory that I don't even know if we've talked about this on the podcast, but I've talked about this a lot in my life, which is that because like the idea that Jacob is drawn to Bella because of Renesmee would also indicate that he'd be drawn to Edward for the same reason.
Yes. I
So
love
it's like-
that
I was
so much.
reading something recently that was talking about like the life cycles of sperm versus egg, and how like sperm only exists in the body for like a certain amount of time, whereas like eggs are, you know, chilling there for quite some time.
Yeah.
What
So,
moment would that be in
It
the
would
text?
be, they didn't figure out the exact moment, but they figured that this experience of, like, overwhelming, like, love and, like attachment to Edward would have happened for Jacob probably, like, the last, like, few months before the wedding, which is completely checked the fuck out.
Because he's in love with Edward.
Yeah,
Wow.
so they don't pinpoint the
That's
exact moment that
really
would
good point.
start happening, but, I mean...
But there's also, like, I have no idea how reproduction works, just to get that out of the way, but there's, like, some sort of, like, you're giving half your genetic code is going to your baby.
Yeah.
So, like, half of Edward's genetic code becomes Renesmee, like, that's gonna make Jacob into Edward.
Right, and also, I would, like, the way I hate getting into the discourse of, like, how this pregnancy fucking happens.
I
but,
know!
like,
I recently read I'd read it before, but I recently read it again, the Stephanie Meyer explanation, and it was so upsetting.
Yeah. What'd she say?
She goes into, like, her version of, like, anatomically, like, how, like,
how
Edward
a man and a woman.
Yeah. It's just like, so when mommies and daddies love each other and they're blessed by the Lord in Mormon marriage. It was about like how like his semen is venomous, I think.
Oh yeah.
Semen is venomous. Okay, but I read this as, I feel like the only way, like, his body wouldn't produce more sperm, so the only sperm that he has is the sperm that he was frozen with.
When
He has not
17.
ejaculated since he was turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
There's also just no way that Edward masturbates.
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
person,
he definitely.
doesn't do that.
So vampires don't have wet dreams.
Yeah.
So like.
Vampire wet dreams is when you get single.
So, but I think that means that he's had that sperm the whole time, so Jacob could have been drawn to him.
What Twilight character are you?
She doesn't want to say it. Upset. You already did say it earlier.
I already
Well,
said
yeah,
it.
Bella.
I'm Bella.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the reasons. I have brown hair. I'm white. I'm clumsy. I like to read. And I like tall men.
I thought that was gonna be God.
I love Jesus.
She pointed to the ceiling.
Alex actually sometimes calls me Christian Kip because I was raised extremely loosely Protestant, but I did see a nativity when I went home a couple weeks ago. So
we should plug something.
Okay.
What did we do?
If
Good
if
job,
we
guys.
weren't like on
cut
the
this
air,
all
I would make everyone plug their favorite thing about Alex really loudly.
We can do that anyway, really loudly.
Yeah.
Right now.
Okay, everyone share your favorite thing about Alex.
You go first.
I love his need for attention. Your turn.
Say something.
Yell it.
Yeah, I am.
Yell it.
I love his height.
That's also why you're Bella. Okay, my favorite thing about Alex is that I learned today, which I didn't know, but I also knew in my brain that he's on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius.
Yeah,
And he always,
really accurate.
his first response to everything is, "Ooh, that's expensive," or "Oh, that was cheap."
Actually, his lack of responses reminded me that my favorite thing about Alex is how aloof he is.
Yeah.
Aquarius.
He's like a cat. I actually think that was good. I think we can just keep that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I'm yelling.
Yeah.
Should I do mine again in clean take?
No. I'll suffer through it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say how moody I was?
No, you're
No,
how aloof you
aloof.
are. Which you
Bye.
just proved by coming
proved.
in here.
Tipping his head and tipping back.
Plug your favorite thing about yourself.
I don't know. I'm tall.
That was Sam's first one.
Let's wrap her up. So, thanks, Lily.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks for being
I've
here.
been waiting literally my whole life to be given a platform to talk about Twilight as much as I just
Yeah.
did, and also my thesis. Anyways, thank you very much, guys.
Yeah. Do you want to share any social media or like
Yes.
or any big projects you have coming up?
Any big projects? My Instagram is Killy Lip. I mostly post pictures of my cat now.
Mhm.
I used to
New cat mom.
new cat mom.
Mm.
I have a Finsta that you can't follow, but I'll tell you what it is.
Can I follow?
You can follow it.
Yes.
It's mail order midwife. And it's also mostly pictures of my cat now. But sometimes it's funny too. And I'd like to plug the video that I made in middle school. You also can't see that, but it exists, so you should just know that somebody did that.
Oh wow.
Beautiful.
That's all folks. Thank you for listening to Gender Forking. All of Season 1 is now streaming.
To stay updated about the podcast, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at genderforking.
For more Twilight content from us, you can follow our blog at bowlingshirtbellas.tumblr.com. For other inquiries, email us at bowlingshirtbellas@gmail.com.
If you're interested in supporting the production and maintenance of this podcast, head to patreon.com/genderforking. The music you are hearing is from O Lucifer.